So we are living out louder. I am your host, Dave Vargas. I have joining with me today, I have a very special guest coming all the way from Australia, Victoria, Australia. I have the soul centered coach, Anthea Spark. Welcome, Anthea.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Can
And
you hear me?
so, I was happy that I was very excited to have you join with me. And it seems maybe, are you able to hear me good?
Yes. Just a bit of a delay.
Okay. So yes, I was incredibly happy to have you with me because we're very like-minded. We're doing the same type of work in many different ways. And one thing as a healer, a thing that you really specialize in, because what's going on in this world right now is a big cause for healing. And explain to me some of the ways that you've discovered to help that you didn't even recognize in helping others heal.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the ways that I stumbled on about 4 years ago was healing the inner child. Um, I did a lot of one-on-one sessions with clients, and it was during one session with a specific client that I realized that their inner child there was coming through. I could physically see their face and hear their voice changing. And it was during that session that I realized that I was actually talking to their inner child. I wasn't talking to the adult in them. And so it was in that session that I began exploring these new ways of allowing that inner child to be expressed and be heard and be seen and held. And so it was through that that I began helping people heal their inner child. And I use hypnosis and guided meditation and all sorts of techniques that I learnt when I studied soul-centered psychotherapy. And these are all techniques that were created from the philosophies of Carl Jung. And so as I began working with people in this way through guided meditation and gentle hypnosis, they began having these profound experiences where they were connecting deeply with their inner child and changing the memory of what had happened in the past within them. So I began opening up new doors in my business where I could help people heal their inner child. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, when I sent my youngest daughter to kindergarten, that I began actually experiencing that for myself. So when I took her to kindergarten, she didn't want to stay alone. So I ended up staying with her. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to force her to be here on her own. She's not ready for me to go. So I stayed, and I stayed for the whole term. And I became one of the helpers at kindergarten. And she didn't want to participate in the activities. She didn't want to paint and build blocks. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it. So I sat down and I started painting, and she was just standing there next to me watching me. It was as if she was stepping back so that I could step in, so that I could do the work. And so I started painting and playing. And it was in that moment that I could really feel my inner child coming out, because I never got to go to kindergarten when I was little. And I felt free in that moment to paint like a child, to play with the other kids and be silly and have fun. And it was through that fun and being silly like a child and free like a child, that I was healing my own inner child. And it was in those moments that I knew that this is something that I need to help other people with, because essentially anything that holds us back as adults is directly linked to our inner child. And I'm a really strong believer of that.
Thank you. Yes. So many things came to me while you were saying that. I'm a very big fan of Carl Jung too. That, personal development, psychology, the behavior, the mind is all well and good. It's key to understanding us. But what was so amazing about that man was that he added the spirituality to it. He brought the metaphysical to that all. It was, to me,
Absolutely.
so essential to it, which was, to me, missing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he was Freud's.
And but what you yes, go on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he was Freud's student, and he didn't agree with everything that Freud taught. And he let his intuition guide him down this different path, psychotherapy. And that is why we have his teachings today, because he kind of disagreed with his teacher and he listened to his intuition over uh, his ego. And that's why now we have these beautiful teachings of Carl Jung that we all resonate so deeply with, and it's really powerful.
Extremely so. I love it. That's everything that I am. I absolutely love that, because I really feel without um, spirituality as its foundation, you're missing so much. But as you were saying, I am also a big proponent of that, because many of the things that we believe right now are programmed beliefs were encountered as we were when the in a child, when we were young, when we were a child.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is what Carl Jung taught, was that between the ages of 0 and 6, we create our belief systems. And they're based on the things that we see adults do and the things we hear adults say and our own interpretations of things. And for those who follow me, they hear me talking about this over and over again, because it is so important, because those beliefs, they sit in our unconscious mind. As we grow older, we sometimes will forget about them, and they will unconsciously control us in our adult lives. So if we're not aware of what our belief systems are, they could be in complete conflict to what we're trying to manifest and create in our lives today. So it's really important to go deep within and do the inner work so that you can find out what your beliefs are. Because when you can understand what your beliefs are that you created as a child, you create awareness, and that's how you can actually change things. But a lot of people, what happens is they might take a few steps forward, but then they feel like they're taking steps back, and they feel like they just can't get to that part that they want to. They can't achieve those goals that they want to. And often it's because there is a huge fear of change. Yeah. And as crazy as this may sound, some people have a fear of success and happiness because they don't know how to be the person who is successful and happy. Their rule book, based on the beliefs that they created as children, in their rule book, that contains suffering and scarcity and unhappiness and pain. And that's how that's a part of, if that's a part of our identity, it's really hard for the ego to let go of that and say, you know what, I'm going to be brave and move towards the happiness and the success. And so it's about finding the right support to help you push through that scary part and get to the other side, where you can begin exploring what it's like to be this person who has success and happiness. Because that's going to be really uncomfortable to do if you've been stuck in victim mentality or pain and suffering and being unsuccessful in whatever way. And so these beliefs will pull you away from that you truly desire if you do not know what they are. Because a belief wants to be proven right, and our ego will manipulate and trick us so that we can prove this belief right over and over again, so that we can remain stuck in this identity that we are so used to.
Absolutely, yes. If we're not, as it said, conscious of, the shadow, and most importantly the ego, which is its total allegiance, is, the denial of happiness, of unity, of love. It's so insidious. It will do anything and everything to sabotage that.
Absolutely. And so our job is to become aware
I
of,
mean, literally, yeah.
to become aware of when that happens, so we can go, oh, hang on a second, I just did that like that. Oof, why did I do that? And then understand yourself better. But what a lot of us do is we attack ourselves. So we recognize how we're not moving towards where we want to be. And instead of going, that's all right, you haven't figured that out yet, but you're going to figure it out. Instead of us coaching and like supporting ourselves in that way, we attack ourselves. And we go, you idiot, look at you. You should have been here by now. You should have bought the house by now. You should have had the man by now. You should have had the family by now. And what that does is that holds us stuck in that pattern even more, because now our emotional body is broken and bruised because we keep beating it. And when our emotional body is broken and bruised, there's no way we can successfully move forward in an empowered way. And so it's this vicious cycle. And that's another thing that I help people with, is mindset. Mindset and the unconscious mind is a big part of transformation. And if we haven't got that part right, that important part, it's very hard for us to move forward. And we create this living hell in our own minds.
Mm. It's interesting how, one of it's the ego on us, because as the little child, we picked up these beliefs of unworthiness and things of that nature, the many different categories that we saw: communication, love, and so forth, was that sense of unworthiness. So it's doing everything to keep that guilt alive.
Yes. And so, I have a lot of people who come to me, and they were raised, for example, by a parent who had strong narcissistic qualities. Now, someone who has strong narcissistic qualities has experienced severe trauma in childhood. And the worse the behavior of the person, the deeper their pain is, right? And so what will happen is, if they're raised by someone with strong narcissistic qualities, they will then go on and seek out partners who also have strong narcissistic qualities. And so the vicious cycle continues, and they still remain stuck in their identity. Now, this is all unconscious. No one wants to be stuck in their pain and their suffering. But people will seek out, that's why they say things like, oh, you married your father, you married your mother. It's because unconsciously we look for people through filters that we know will support us to remain stuck in our pain, and will support us to enable the continuation of feeling unworthy.
It is, yeah. And that's, yes, absolutely. We are looking, it's that trauma bond, and it's where we're looking for that journey to recreate that acceptance. Love me. I will do anything and go through every uh, pit of fire for you to love me.
Absolutely.
And I will hang on through all this toxicity until you do.
Yes, that's right. I did a live about this a couple of
And
months ago,
and you know,
where I spoke about how people with strong narcissistic qualities end up with people who are empaths, who have strong empathic qualities, because the empaths are so desperate for love and attention that they will stay with someone who has strong narcissistic qualities if they've been shown that little bit of love, because there's always love there, right? Regardless of the toxicity, there's always some love there. And so the empath will take that love and be like, oh my God, that is so delicious. I will stay here and I will endure the pain and the suffering and the abuse and this and that because I want to taste that love again. And because they've given me that love, there's a like an obligation, but they loved me, right? There's an obligation now to stay with that person. And so that's what happens.
and that's another key thing. And as we all know, I mean, yes, everything does always start out delicious, as you said, and I love that. Um, it always does. No, the ego hasn't came out yet. All love is true, and but then the that shadow, the toxicity, the bad behavior comes out. But it's never recognized because as the child, it was it was chaos.
Yeah. And so then what happens is we have two triggered people whose inner child are coming out. And so the person with the strong narcissistic qualities who never got to be expressed, who never felt like they could express who they were, and they never got the love that they wanted, or they never got their way, right? They want their way, and they do not have the ability to show compassion and emotional maturity because they were never shown compassion as a child. And if we are never taught how to be compassionate, how the hell are we going to be compassionate in relationship with others? Right? And the empath is like, but why don't you love and accept me as I am? Why are you trying to control me? Why can't you just be soft in this moment with me? Right? And so now we have two people banging heads, but it's not actually the adult in them, it's the inner child in them. Yeah? Because the inner child essentially wants to be mothered and fathered by someone. But it's not the partner's responsibility. It's our responsibility to mother and father our own inner child. And if you're not aware of that, you will seek that out from your partner, right? Now, if we had two people who were willing to do the work on themselves, whether they had strong narcissistic qualities or strong empathic qualities, if they were willing to do the work on themselves together, but separately, they could end up having a really happy relationship together. It would take work, like all relationships. But it's important to recognize that. And when we step into relationship with others, it unlocks a deeper part of us that needs our attention. Because what we all seek out is this deep intimacy, right? We want deep intimacy, like physically and emotionally and spiritually. But if we're not willing to do the work on ourselves, it's really hard to get there with others.
It really is. You touched upon that. because love is the only thing that is real. Everyone is innocent. Everything that we're going to encounter is either a demonstration of love or ultimately a cry for love.
Mm.
But it does take a willingness. And if they're not willing, that narcissistic partner or person in your life, because there's a willingness. We all want to be better, but if we're not willing to let go of conditional love, or domineering, or toxicity, it's never going to happen.
Mm.
And because it's recognizing how it really feels or look to be in a relationship that both you know, share that deep inner communication together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so so when it is like that, it's all they're seeing is just what they saw as the child, the chaos. And to me, that's the normal. That's the
Yeah.
chaos is normal,
Yep. And so
but
then
it's not.
but it's not, no. And so, now I'll just say too, the person with stronger narcissistic qualities, they would have fallen in love with the empath because the empath would have actually shown them real love. And they may have been the very first time they've ever experienced love in their lives, right? So then we've got two people who actually do love each other, but are finding it hard to be together because they are experiencing this chaos that they did as children. And where and what you'll find is that they will argue, pull apart, come back together, and this cycle will continue for a really long time. Unfortunately, these relationships won't stand the test of time because if the two people aren't willing to do the work on themselves, it will be really hard to find peace again in that relationship, right? And one person will outgrow the other person and they will eventually leave. But there is an opportunity for people to thrive in these relationships when they heal their inner child, right? And this is the whole thing with twin flames and soulmates and this interesting dynamic of the chaser and the runner and the ghosting and all of this stuff in relationships, because relationships, when we enter them, essentially we are standing in front of a mirror, right? And at the start, we reflect back to each other how deeply we love and how amazing this connection can be. But when the other side it begins to show, when the mirror goes deeper and we mirror each other's inner child, that's when things get crazy, right? That's when things go a bit wild and we can argue and find conflict. But it doesn't have to be like that, yeah? And it's I'm here to really share with this message with the world that when you heal your inner child, you will break free of the chains that bind you to the past. You will break free from the cage you were born into, the cage that you placed yourself in. And when you break free, anything is possible. You can heal from anything. I believe anyone can heal from anything. Now, our wounds essentially are imprinted on our soul. But when we understand our wounds better, right, then we can support ourselves to move through them freely and quickly. We don't have to be stuck in them. When we drop into the wounds, we can go, oh, okay, I'm back in my abandonment wound now, but that's all right. You're still loved, you're supported, you're not abandoned anymore. That was from the past. And that's your inner child going, oi, I need you right now. Give me some attention, give me some love. That's what happens when we drop into our wounds. We can't erase the wounds, but we can add layers of support and love to our timelines. Right. And when we add layers of support and love, and we give that to ourselves, We remove emotional stress from the body. We break out of those chains, because that's essentially what we want. Everyone wants love and acceptance. Your inner child wants love and acceptance more than anything. But your inner child needs it from you, not from someone else. No one can give your inner child love and acceptance the way you can give it to yourself. Your mother won't, your father won't, your partner won't. And so I have a lot of people who say to me, yeah, but I just want my mum to come to therapy with me. I just want my dad to tell me he loves me and he's proud of me. Perhaps he can't, right? Perhaps he's not capable of that. You need to give it to yourself. That's how you become empowered. When you don't need someone else to change their behavior for you to grow and feel better. You can do that all for yourself. But having the right support is essential. You actually don't need your people from the past, because what happens is that because of their own wounds and because of their own deep pain and suffering, some people just cannot go there with you, right? And what I see, Dave, is that I see a lot of people going, yeah, but I just want them to I just want to have this type of relationship with them, and I just want to have that type of relationship with them. Unfortunately, and that's the painful part, is that we have to accept that potentially we can't. And when we stop pushing at them, right, when we stop pushing energetically or unconsciously at them to get something out of them, and we come back and we give that to ourselves and we heal our own pain, we show up differently in relationship with them, which means they're not having this energetic push anymore. We're not pushing them away. It means they can show up differently too. And the universe does this amazing thing. When you start giving yourself that love and acceptance and support that you want, the universe will bring in other people who can give you that same love and acceptance that you seek from your parents or the person that you can't get it from. And you will have mother and father healing from complete strangers. And it may be in split moments, or it may be in short interactions or long relationships, but it will come in. And that is the blessings and the reward you get for doing the inner work on yourself.
Yes. Amen to all of that. You just, threw out a lot of treasure trove of healing wisdom right there. It's first and foremost, it is a willingness. It's willing to see that everything on the outside that's going on, I'm the cause of it. This is
Yeah.
me. This is I cannot blame this on everyone else anymore, right? And we do throw narcissism out a lot, but it is a label to, clarify or designate behavior. And, we had someone live, Amanda asked, do narcissists ever heal? And I believe so, but it does take a willingness, a choice. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's they can heal if they're willing to do the work, right? Because essentially we are all capable of having strong narcissistic qualities, right? And if we all sit down for a second, even the empaths, and we look back on our lives, there will be some place at some point in time where we did consciously or unconsciously try to manipulate someone to get our way, right? Or we lied, or we tried to get love by going indirectly, or so we are all capable of this. But essentially, someone who has strong narcissistic qualities is someone who had severe trauma in their childhood. Yeah. And it's about understanding, not about blaming and judging, because blame and judge are very low vibrating emotions that if you want to ascend, you have to get rid of them. You have to find a way to not judge and blame, but take responsibility for yourself and understand why you would be wanting to judge somebody else. So it's about understanding, right? And yes, anyone can heal from anything when they do the inner work. right? Now, that's essentially going to be a weak spot for them, yeah? But if they're self-aware, they will be able to move through that. And, you know, one of the most powerful things anyone can do is communicate. So let's say someone with strong narcissistic qualities was doing the inner work, and they're in relationship with you, and you did something and it triggered them. They would say, hey, you know, I just want to express to you that thing that you did or you said that triggered me. And because of my upbringing and how I was shamed and attacked as a child, it made me drop into that wound. And I don't really know what to do in that moment other than attack, because that's what I've done my whole life, because I feel myself, this rage brewing inside of me like that when I'm triggered. And so what I'm going to do from now on is when I feel myself getting triggered, I'm just going to leave the room and I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to process that. And then I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to share that with you. Yeah. But we don't learn these skills growing up. We're not taught how to communicate like that. We're taught to, through our programs and conditions, we're taught to, you trigger me, I'm going to attack you to defend myself. Yeah. And then I'm going to create this great divide between us so that you don't come anywhere close to my emotional state. Yeah. And I will keep you at arm's length, but I still don't want you to go anywhere. I still want you in my life. Right. But that's what we're taught to do. And so when people have the right tools, how to drop into vulnerability, how to communicate, how to express, anything is possible.
I agree, and you touched upon that. You know, that is true intimacy to me. You know, I define it and as, you know, sharing the truth of who you are as soon as you know it, with kindness and compassion. Anything else, it's brutality. You know, I'm
Yeah.
hiding something from you or I'm letting it build up, and then that's when it's, you know, one last you know, straw, and that's when thing, you know, flying off the handlebars, or when we find out from other people or after the fact is when it's damaging, and it doesn't feel intimate that, you know, someone wouldn't share the truth with us. But that's romantic love, and every time we're talking about love, we're automatically, you know, going right there, and because it's a part of our life, a daily life, and it's something we do have to look at, if we because if we're not looking at it, the faces may change of who we're with, but it's we're gonna keep running if we don't do the inner work, so that the problem will stay the same, but the face only the faces change. So when we're looking at that, it's self-love at love. And you came up recently with, you know, a all too common, because we encountered this chaos, this wounded love, if you will, from an unlikely source when we were as a child.
Mm.
Explain that to me.
So when we're triggered, right? Anytime we're triggered by something, it's an opportunity for our inner child to step in and express. So essentially, if you don't do the inner work and heal yourself and your inner child, you're being haunted by your inner child. And when I say inner child, that could be you from 10 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. It could be you from yesterday, okay? So if something happens and you get triggered and 16-year-old Dave steps in, the teenager, watch out, because teenagers are brutal, yeah? They will rage against the machine. They are defiant. They don't care what the consequences are. So if you trigger the 16-year-old, watch out, because he will be brutal and attacking. So what happens to you, Dave, is it's like visualize it like this. He steps into your body, and adult Dave, his hands are tied. He has no control in that moment because the 16-year-old's here and he's got a few things to say. Yeah, he's got some things to say that were never heard before. So he does his little thing, and he sees black. He sees black everywhere, and he's just expressing. And it doesn't matter what the other person says. In fact, the other person may trigger him to go into more rage. Yeah? And so then when everything calms down and adult Dave's hands become untied and 16-year-old Dave disappears again, you're like, holy shit, what did I do? I did not handle that well. Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I walk away? But it's too late by then and the damage is done. So that is how our inner child haunts us. Yeah? And that's why we need to do the work on our inner child. So for you, you'd be like, okay, my 16-year-old needs a little bit of love and attention, and he's got some anger that he needs to address and release. Yeah? So I don't know if that answered your question, but I felt a strong pull to share that.
No, it is, because it's loaded. There's so much there, and I and whatever is coming to you, share that out. People need to hear this, And what would you feel then? We were discussing that before I do go in that. What would you feel? We had someone ask, what would you feel then? And that you kind of were just addressing it. What would you feel would be the biggest lesson for an empath in regards to dealing, with a narcissist?
Okay, so, and this goes off what I just said, right? So essentially in relationships, as we go deeper and the relationship becomes more intimate, we're beginning to get to very sensitive areas within ourselves, okay? It's areas that have been guarded for so long. And so that's when the triggers start to come in, because it's like, I don't know if I can trust this person. Shit, like he's getting too close. She's getting too close. This is vulnerable territory for me. I haven't had anyone enter this part since I was 5 when I built that wall, right? So for someone who is an empath, who is with someone with narcissistic qualities, what you have to understand is that you need to have really good boundaries, okay? Now, what happens is the reason why you may feel controlled or manipulated or told off or whatever it is that because essentially if you came to this relationship deeply wounded, like a victim, the person with the narcissistic qualities would be like, I'm going to save you. Okay, and essentially that's what they have done, and that's essentially how this relationship started. Now, they may not actually want to save you, but if you were showing up emotionally weak in this relationship, like you don't know how to make that decision, or you don't know which job to take, or you look confused all the time, and you don't know what to do, they're going to be like, do this, do that. Now, it's not because they're trying to be controlling or manipulative. They're actually trying to help you, because that's how the dynamic of this relationship started. Now, if you've changed and you don't want that anymore, then you have to begin having boundaries and sharing that and communicating that. And you have to say, you know what? I really value your advice. However, I think I've got this. I'm gonna, my intuition's telling me to go this way, so I'm gonna do it like this from now on. And if you want to communicate with someone with narcissistic qualities, you have to set the scene. You have to be like, honey, I want to share something with you, but actually I don't actually want advice. Even though I value your advice, in this moment, I don't want advice. I just want you to listen to me and hold this space for me so I can express. Would you be able to do that for me? Because that would really mean the world to me if you could do that for me. Now, that person, even though they may feel uncomfortable, most likely they'll go, of course. Of course. And if they may even try to step in and give you advice, but in that moment, you have to remain soft and go, honey, you're doing that thing, like how I said to you at the start, I don't want advice. I actually want to make my own decision, but I just want you to listen to me. Yeah. Now you're setting the scene. You're leading how you want things to go. And you're not doing it in a pushy way. You're doing it in a soft and gentle way. Yeah. Now, when you are soft and gentle and feminine in your approach, whether you're a man or a woman, you can soften the hardest of shells. You can soften the most angry, rageful person with sweetness and kindness. So where we are used to blaming and attacking the narcissist, we're not taking responsibility for our own ways that we show up in this relationship. So you have to set boundaries. And a boundary is saying, you know what? Can you just listen to me right now? You don't have to say anything. I just want to be heard. That's a boundary. Boundaries do not have to be confronting and aggressive and saying, I'm not putting up with that. That's not a boundary. That's a reaction. Yeah. A boundary, if someone comes in and they're angry and they're yelling at you, a boundary is saying, right, excuse me, why are you speaking to me like that? Or are you okay? You asking, are you okay? That's a boundary. That's saying, you know what? You're yelling at me, but I'm not going to tolerate it. So I'm going to ask you how you are instead. Yeah. But once you have boundaries in place, you have to support them. This is a powerful way to deal with someone who has strong narcissistic qualities. And the other thing is if you're going to be with someone like that, then you have to love and accept them for who they are right now. If you can't, this relationship won't work because you can't change people. All you can do is love them, and the love will either guide them to change or it will not. And that's when you have to ask yourself, well, can I stay with this person or not?
Right. It's because there's a lot of things at play. Everybody is dealing with their inner child. And to me, that role of the narcissist is the one that's so far down the ego's rabbit hole, the most wounded of the inner child. Their child is so desperate to show love, to want love, and it's that's why it's so blind to see that it's they're controlling and conditioning everything. It's that's the paradox, that they are just so completely blind to their quest for love.
Yep.
And as you were saying, though, it's we it can be a duel, and if we still want love, we have to act in that, set boundaries. I like to call boundaries loving fences.
I love that.
But as you said, yeah, I do, because if someone's screaming and yelling at us slamming the door outside of the room is not the answer either. Fighting back with more anger and hostility. It's like you said, it's soft and gentle, and whether it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man, or yeah.
Because none of us are
always the way. The answer is always love.
Exactly. Because you know what? Essentially, nothing anyone does is because of us. The way people react is because of what's going on inside of them, right? And it's always the way we react is because of what's going on inside of us. And when we can separate that and go, okay, wow, he's really upset right now. I wonder what's going on for him. Or, wow, she's got something going on. What's happening for her? I wonder what's happening for her. Then we come at it from a different place. We're going, are you okay? When you're not taking it personally, you're going, are you okay? What's wrong? That's going to change the dynamic again. So when one person can go, all right, I'm just going to not put my needs aside, but I'm just going to I'm not going to react right now. I'll share this with them later when they've calmed down, not right now when they're triggered, because I know it's just going to trigger them even more. But when one person can see that, that changes the dynamic of the relationship. Yeah, and the other thing is that usually we assume that our partner should know what we want, or our partner should know how we feel. They should know. Well, no, they shouldn't. If you haven't communicated that to them, how the hell are they going to know? Yeah, people aren't mind readers. And so it's important in relationships, especially long-lasting relationships, communication is what gets people through. Hey, honey, remember how I said that if you're going to be home late, just send me a text so I know you're coming home late. Not, why didn't you text me when they get home, right? Why didn't you text me? You know that I want you to text me. Maybe that person forgot because they had a stressful day at work, right? So it's about, again, dropping into being kind to each other through love.
Yes. And I found that interesting. You're on TikTok, even though I've yet to be on there yet. I've, but as all, I've yet to watch Tiger King be on TikTok or have a drop of alcohol in 2020. Um, but with that said, um, you found something quite startling that you were able to help others with. What was it that was revealed to you? You were called upon.
Yeah, so I did a post about women, girls raised by narcissistic mothers. Yeah, because essentially a lot of people are in this hell inside of their own head where they don't know what they're feeling, if what they're feeling is true or right, whether they're over exaggerating, whether they are crazy or not, because of the way that they were raised by narcissistic mothers. Now, a lot of these women think they have daddy issues, but it's in fact mummy issues, right? Because they never received that gentle love and sweetness that they needed as a little girl. And what happens to those little girls is they seek it out in men in their loving relationships later, and they overgive. So exactly what we've been talking about, the empath woman with a narcissistic man, and they end up in really terrible abusive relationships. So I did this video about that, and it was a 28-second video, and it was just very gentle, like I was just talking about those a few things to help people understand that actually this might be happening to you. And the post went viral, and I have thousands of comments on that post that I'm sitting down to every night and I'm replying to, because women and young women, there's a lot of young 20-year-olds going, please help me. They are asking for help. They know that post just strikes something in them, and they are wanting help. And so some of them are saying things like, how can you just call me out like that? You just described my whole life in 28 seconds. You know, that they're shocked by this. And it's like just, in that moment, they're having this massive awakening. And I didn't know that that's what that video was going to do to these people. Right? So I'm sitting there and I'm replying to every single one of them, and I'm inviting them to come and join my Facebook group called Healing Little You, because in Healing Little You, that's essentially what I do, is I help people heal from their childhood trauma, and I do that through guided meditation and advice and support, because what these people want is love and acceptance, and to be told that how they're feeling is valid, that they're not crazy, that how they're feeling is valid. Because when you're raised by a mother who's strong narcissistic qualities, you will end up confused about how you feel, whether it's real or whether you've made it up. And so it's really important to help people understand what's manipulation and what actually is what you're feeling. And so that's what I uncovered on TikTok. And TikTok is what I'm seeing on TikTok is this youth, this generation who are in their 20s right now. They are showing up and they're ready to do the work. They're like, I want to do the work now. They're not going to wait till their 40s and 50s. They're here and they're showing up. These crystalline kids are ready to do the work. And if we can help them to do the work now, then this is going to create a really powerful world for our future kids. And you know what else, Dave? There's young boys on TikTok.
That is quite amazing, and it's yeah.
So I'll just say there are a lot of young boys and men on TikTok who are doing videos where they're crying and they're vulnerable and they're saying, you know what, I'm having a really hard day today. And I usually wouldn't post a video like this, but I'm going to because I want to show you that it's okay to cry. It's okay for men to cry. And so this young generation is paving the path, right? Where it's okay for men to express too. And this is kids in their 20s. This isn't coming from our generation. This is coming from their generation. And I am just so humbled to watch these beautiful souls pave this new way forward. And I want to do everything I can to support both men and women from that generation and our generation to do that.
Absolutely. That's something we never got to see. You know, either gender, we want to hide everything and sweep everything under the rug and not show anybody any perceived weakness. But vulnerability is the opposite, where, on the outside, the ego thinks, weakness is strength. But when you're standing and loving your inner child and loving yourself to feel that the weakness you're showing is the strength, is the power, the being in touch. And it's so it's so important.
Mm.
you know
yeah we're also used
I
to
feel
having
the way the world is right now,
I was just going to say we're also used to having these hard shells that we don't know how to be vulnerable. We don't know how to be vulnerable with each other. But it's through vulnerability that we create real connections and deep intimacy with ourselves and others. And I'll let you go on about what you're saying about how the world is today.
well, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. Vulnerability in everything that's all that we want to do. Our soul just wants to express itself, just like as when we were, a child and we wanted to, sing the song out of key, dance without
Yeah,
knowing the moves, hug, love, and just be playful without thinking about it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Vulnerability. Yeah. That's the incredible time that we're in right now, is um, a great time for healing. It's bringing up a lot of things, but it's a great time to rise above everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
Where did you feel? Where can you pinpoint, do you feel that it's because of the work, you know, that we keep bringing this to awareness? Do you feel like that's why it's become more aware for younger people to even know about this, to even know that the way I behave has been programmed by my mom or my dad, the
Well, I don't
people
know
who
if they're
raised them?
I don't know if they're necessarily aware of the programming as such, but I think what's happened is as generations, as we've gone through generation to generation, we've become a bit softer. Yeah. And so the people who are more conscious is growing. Yeah. And that will essentially, whether you're raised by someone who's conscious or not, it affects everyone. So the more we do the work and we meditate and we become conscious and we become more enlightened, it affects everyone because we're all a part of this collective consciousness, right? So me doing the work on myself may affect, it will affect people in America, and you doing the work on you will affect people in Africa. And so what happens is we are all becoming more enlightened, whether we all do the work or we don't. Yeah. And the more we wake up and we become conscious, the more it affects our children. Now, children, and I say children, I still mean 20-year-olds, they are not as conditioned as we are. And so it's going to affect them more powerfully first because they're more open than we are. Right? So these younger generations have all of this profound wisdom. Yeah, they are still connected to the essence of who they really are. They're still strongly connected to their inner child, more so than us. That's why it's even more so important for us to let them lead us, because they are, right? They're the ones who led me into, they're the ones who led me to do this post, because I've been watching them for months and months. I've been watching people crying and expressing, and I'm like, wow, this person doesn't realize they've been raised by someone with strong narcissistic qualities. So I've allowed them to lead the way forward. And this is what they've led me to. Now, my children, who are 6 and 5, I let them lead me into how to be a better mother. Yeah. I let them share their wisdom with me because they come out with some of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. And when I'm feeling like I'm not a great mother or I go to them and I say, hey, do you feel like I spend enough quality time with you? Hey, in those moments where you're not listening to me and I get angry because you're not listening to me, because I feel like my whole life I've never been listened to. And I say that to them. That's one of my wounds. And I say to them, what do you think I can do in that moment? Because I don't want to get angry. What do you think I can do in that moment so that you can hear me better? Yeah. And they tell me. And I listen to that. Because not only do I want to learn from them, I want them to grow up. I want them to grow up knowing that their opinion is valid and that what they say matters and that that's important to me, and how I behave around them is important to me, and that I'm sorry if I hurt them, right? So the dynamic in my household with me and my 2 empowered daughters is crazy at times because everyone's trying to stand in their power, right? But we're all trying to be vulnerable at the same time and kind. So it's a challenge raising empowered children, but I know that they're going to grow up and they're going to be okay when they get to adulthood. They're not going to have this internal, but hang on, how am I feeling? Is it right? Is it valid? Is it, But yeah, we have a lot to learn from young people. And if we drop our this whole patriarchal mentality of we know better and da 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 da, this world will transform more rapidly than we've ever seen it transform before. And that's my little rant over.
Yes. No, but you touched upon something that is so very important. I felt many things. It's many things because it's first and foremost, if this is how I want to see the world, if this is, I have to be the one acting like that and communicating that to everyone else. But as you said, as also as a parent, I have to you know, break this generational gap in these, you know, and, come over the timelines, the generations, and do that for the ones that come after me, and create that safe space and communication and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, they always can. You have to be the one to do it.
And I think that's why we're here. I think our generation, we're here to break the curse. Yeah? We're actually here to break the curse. Unfortunately, it's up to us, which means we have to do the inner work, and that can be dark and confronting and challenging. But the freedom that comes out of that, when you come out of the other end of that, you will experience more freedom than you've ever felt your whole entire life. Yeah? And you will be honored that you were the one who was chosen to come here and break this generational curse. Yeah? So it's really powerful stuff when we begin to view it like that.
Yes. It's so true. That is the freedom. That's what pauses, I think, people from, wanting to accept the quest of healing, because now they're questioning, why does this, and they're uncovering it, all the darkness of how I've self-sabotaged myself, and all my past events. And it is quite startling to
Oh,
find out it's been me all
yeah,
along, uh, withholding feeling love's presence. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the hardest part. People will say, I'm scared. And I'm like, well, there's
but it,
nothing, you don't
I
have to be
love how
scared. Sorry, go on. I was just going to say
no, go on. You don't have to
that,
be scared, right?
yeah, you don't have to be scared. The only thing you're going to uncover is who you really are. And in doing so, if there are things that you don't like, you can change them now. Yeah? So there's nothing to be scared about, because all you will do in doing the work and going into your shadow, all you're going to do is find your real power. And it's in the shadow that we find our true power, so that we can step into the light even more and be full expressions of who we are.
Yes. Yes. It's freedom, because I'm no longer a prisoner of the past.
Yes.
Everything from the past has hurt me and has kept me imprisoned and limited and chained, and not experiencing the nowness reality.
Yes. And it's now, it's now in this is where the magic is. It's right here and now. And if we stay here now, we will see the universe communicating with us all the time, but we miss it because we're stuck in the past or we're fearing the future. It's about coming back to right now. All we have is this very, very moment.
It's beautiful. It's such beautiful freedom to not be afraid. That's, to me, of healing the inner child. You don't have to be imprisoned with that fear anymore to express yourself. You feel, again, playful and okay to say whatever it is. Look
Yeah.
how you want to look, love how you want to love who you want to love, and you're not afraid to
No.
express.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is the deeper you go, the more you clear, the more you will find that you will just laugh at yourself if you do something silly. You know, like when you see kids and they laugh at themselves and they're like, oh, I just did that, and they laugh. They don't care. They don't care. They laugh. They don't beat themselves up. And that's essentially where we want to get back to. And we can. When we do the inner work, we can get back to that little boy and that little girl who moves through life with curiosity and excitement, not fear and pain. Curiosity and excitement. You know, there's a lot of magic here. And when we drop into the inner child, we can experience that magic again. And we can play with it and create whatever we want to create.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Um, it's such a beautiful thing. I'm even laughing at myself because if no one's aware, I mean, or if they're just joining us now, yeah, I'm in Massachusetts in the United States, uh, and Dia is joining me, 14 hours away into the future, out in Victoria, Australia, and we have a nice, beautiful delay between us going on.
We
But I
do.
laugh at myself, and it's nothing to nothing to yeah. There's nothing to ever be ashamed about,
Mm. Yep.
ever.
Because we're all learning and growing, you know? So when you do something
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that, just say, it's
yeah.
okay. I'm still learning and growing. I haven't mastered that part of my life yet. So I'm going to stumble along the way, and that's okay. I will laugh as I do it, because laughter is, if you don't laugh, what's a life worth living without
Right.
laughter, you know?
Yeah, playful. That's when you know when you're in alignment. You feel playful.
Yeah, yeah. So in the Dao, the yin and yang symbol, right? One side is one side is the like the feminine with a little bit of masculine. The other side's the masculine with a little bit of feminine, and that line that runs in the middle, that's the inner child. That's what they believe, right? And yes, we're never going to be 100% balanced and whole, but if we keep moving towards that, we can really find it in our daily lives.
Right. Yes, that I love that. I did a show on that, last week. It was of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the that sacred union of within, because we're all energy. There's no gender in this
Mm,
oneness and
mm,
energy. And as you said, it is that inner child, just to love that child. Yeah.
mm. Yeah,
Love the hell out of that little child.
yeah.
But it is an incredible thing, and it does start showing yourself self-love, that inner child self-love. It was never shown, the relationships before, we never put ourselves first, and putting ourselves first is not selfish. Putting ourselves first, if I'm okay, then everyone else will be okay around me. But if I'm not okay, everything else is not going to be okay.
Correct. And a lot of people say to me, "Well, no, what do you mean self-love? I don't even know how to do that." Don't even talk to me about self-love because I don't love myself. And I'm like, okay, well, if you can't love yourself, just start by showing yourself sweetness. Yeah? So every time you walk past the mirror, you just look at yourself and you go, hey, you're doing okay. Show yourself that sweetness. And if that's too overwhelming and you can't show yourself sweetness, stop attacking yourself. Yeah? Start with that. Stop saying negative things to yourself and judging yourself and criticizing yourself. Start there. Yeah? So every time you hear that internal voice going, you idiot, you got to turn it around. Yeah? And then you can move towards the sweetness. And then you can move towards the self-love. Break it down. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing that you push away because you don't know how to do it.
Right. It's because they don't know what it looks like, and it's doing the things that you enjoy. It's doing the things that you put off that make you felt guilty that you were not doing.
Yeah.
Do express yourself and do the things that make you feel good. Do put yourself as a priority again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing,
Mm.
you know. So where can, because people that are watching now, and of course, on the replays and later, um, where can one go directly and find you?
Okay. So yeah, you can come. You can find me on Facebook, Anthea Spark Self-Centered Coach, or you can message me directly in Messenger there, or in my personal page, Anthea Spark. If you want to watch more videos, I'm also on YouTube. And you can also go to my website, antheaspark.com, and you can find out more about what it is that I do. But if I've said something and you have been drawn to do some inner work and you want to find out more, just message me on Messenger. I'm on Messenger all the time. That's how I communicate with my clients, and I check my message requests all the time. So I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Yes, because that's very important. I'm a big advocate of that. I do that at work as well, and nobody should put it off because, I mean, we are self healers, but because, I know that you've gone through the traumas, and, and you had to heal yourself. But when we've done this, it took us much longer, and it doesn't
Yes.
have to be
No,
such a long,
it
dark
doesn't.
process.
No. And the thing is that we have to keep moving with the times, which means that as we move through the times and we evolve and we expand, we need to come up with new processes and procedures that help people heal whatever's going on for them with more support and in different ways. So the methods and techniques from the 1980s are not going to have a really powerful effect on you today, right? You have to seek out therapists who can help you move through your pain and your suffering rapidly, but at the right pace for you with the right tools and support. And so the one thing that I like to do is I like to teach my clients all of the tools that they need, that they can use every day to get to process whatever it is that comes up for the rest of their life. So when people come to me, they're like, wow, you've taught me more in one session than I did in that happened in my 2 years of counseling. Now, that counselor probably did everything they could to support you, right? However, maybe that's not what you need right now. Maybe that's what you needed for 2 years, and now you're ready to do this work like this, right? That's all a process. So when people come to me, they're ready to just break out. And that's what I help them do. I help them through that scary stage to get through that change. And like I mentioned to you before, Dave, whether you want to come and do the inner work one-on-one with me, or you want to do it in a group, or you want to just do it for free, I have something for everyone.
Yes, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yes. We have the maps, and it's not just education or motivation, but it's the tools, and
Mm.
it's learning and putting into our daily everyday life. That's beautiful. I really do want to appreciate you joining and sharing your gifts with me tonight. Or, well, my tonight, your morning.
Yep. Thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation a lot. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am. You're very welcome. I am very thankful. I was looking forward to this, and you have so much gifts, and I enjoyed myself. I'm very humbled and privileged, and I want to thank you to go out to everyone that's watching all around the world, and on the replays. If there's also any questions, asked now or in the future, we will get back to them. But I do want to thank you to everyone that taken the time out, uh, and stop scrolling. You have other choices there, but you spent it with us, and it's time well spent. So I want to
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. It's lovely.
Beautiful. Good night, everyone. Thank you again.
Good night.